Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, officials in Texas have warned residents get out now as the powerful Hurricane Harvey heads towards land. And with it, warnings of 125-mile-an-hour winds and up to 3 feet of rain, with forecasters already calling it a life-threatening storm. Our Washington correspondent Kylie Morris is in Texas and she joins us live. Kylie.
Fatima, if this hurricane behaves as it is predicted to behave, it may well become the biggest hurricane to make landfall in the U.S. since Katrina 12 years ago. We're talking about potentially up to 6 million people affected in this area, Greater Houston, down to San Antonio, to Corpus Christi on the coast, back up to Galveston. Of course, people here are no strangers to hurricanes, but what's particularly challenging about Hurricane Harvey is that it's very slow moving, so it's been taking its time drawing up lots of warm water out of the Gulf. It will be very intense, of course, winds of up to 130 miles per hour, as you say. But the concern is that when it makes the coast, when it makes landfall later tonight around Corpus Christi, the prediction is that it will stall and dump epic amounts of rainfall, potentially for days. That is the real concern. That is what people are making preparations for here, as Diana Magnay reports.
From the International Space Station, Hurricane Harvey looks like this. A swirling white tempest en route to Texas, roiling the waters of the Gulf of Mexico. On Earth, it's less pristine. Grey skies and furious seas warning of the storm surge to come. Over the last few days, Harvey has built up from a tropical storm to a Category 2 hurricane, expected to be Category 3 by the time it hits Texas, with 110-mile-an-hour winds. Then it's expected to stall and the heavens will open. Non-stop rain for 5 days. The purple area around Houston will see over 20 inches and possibly as much as 35 in some areas, prompting potentially catastrophic flooding. So people are leaving town. Evacuations ordered across several coastal counties. This is the biggest storm to hit the U.S. since Hurricane Katrina 12 years ago. If you live around here, you know what hurricane season can bring, and most don't like to take chances.
I'm scared, so I'm going to do everything that I can to protect our little place down here and hope and pray for the best.
10 critically ill babies airlifted to safety from a children's hospital in Fort Worth. A rush on the supermarkets to stock up on supplies. And the governor of Texas has mobilized 700 members of the National Guard to deal with the storm.
Please stay tuned to weather alerts. Don't take any chances and evacuate when you are ordered.
Overnight, the US president tweeted out this video of a visit he paid 3 weeks ago to the Federal Emergency Management Agency, whose funds he's toyed with cutting. With all the music and bombast, it's more like a campaign video than any indication of readiness for what promises to be his first natural disaster test as Commander-in-Chief.
So almost on cue, it's just starting to rain here on the outskirts of Houston. We just caught one of the flights into Houston Airport and actually got off the plane that was caught by a number of FEMA workers who were bringing all their gear, preparing for any rescues that might need to be carried out. This is the first real challenge, I think, for President Trump in terms of natural disasters in the U.S. We know from the handling of Katrina, or the mishandling of Katrina, that it can be damaging. There can be political costs associated with it. This is a Republican state, so Donald Trump will be getting lots of advice from the governor here and local politicians about what he should do. There'll be lots of focus, I think, on how he behaves. But for now, people here really generally are just concerned about how they're going to get through the next few days. I've just spoken to a woman who's going home to drag the generator out of her garage so she has power. People are worried about power, water, those winds, and the water's rising around them. So it will be nervous, a lot of nervous people here over the next few days. But for now, It's back to you in the studio, Krishnan.
Thanks, Kylie. Well, while President Trump is being kept up to date with the hurricane, he also found time for a Twitter storm of his own, accusing Democrats of blocking bills in Congress and lashing out at top Republicans once again. Well, one of the more colourful members of his inner circle is longtime friend and political consultant Roger Stone. He's provoked outrage with claims of a spasm of violence if Democrats persist with impeaching Trump. I spoke to him earlier and began by asking what he meant.
Well, the country is very sharply divided. Let me be very clear. I did not advocate violence. I did not condone violence, but I did predict, really because of the rise of a vibrant and robust alternative media, the mainstream media here will not have one narrative regarding impeachment should it happen. And I frankly don't think the American people, the Trump supporters among the American people, will stand for it. Again, I'm not in favor of violence. I renounce violence, but I do think you'll have a violent spasm in the country, and we've already seen violence without impeachment on both sides, and the president has denounced it on both sides. But I was pretty clear: we could have a civil war here if there is what many believe to be an illegitimate, unconstitutional impeachment of the president.
Are you saying this because you foresee it? I mean, you've been very good at predicting the future in the past. You know, you predicted the WikiLeaks, disasters for Hillary Clinton. You predicted the demise of Steve Bannon. Are you saying this because you know the Trump presidency is coming to an end?
No, I don't think that's necessarily true, although I do think that Mr. Mueller is going to drag out his inquiry until he sees the results of the 2018 elections. I don't expect him to wrap up his inquiry for at least 2 years. And if the Democrats were to win a majority of the House, then I think that he could, pardon the expression, trump up any charge against the president, perjury, whatever, in an attempt to remove him.
Do you agree with Steve Bannon, the recently departed strategist, who said the Trump presidency is over, effectively?
Well, Steve kind of backed off that in the second day. I think he may have said that in anger after he was dismissed. At the same time, I would tell you that I am not happy about the announcement made by the president regarding Afghanistan. I think we should be withdrawing our troops. That's what candidate Trump said during the election. I do have some concern about the influence of the generals and whether the globalists are gaining an upper hand here within the administration.
But isn't the truth that the people who voted for Trump have been let down by him to a large degree? I mean, as you say, during the campaign, he talked about America's adventures in Afghanistan being a disaster. Now he wants to send more troops.
There is no evidence in the polling that Trump supporters feel let down in any way, even though I have some minor criticisms of where we are going. And we are 6 months into the presidency, a little early to be declaring it either a massive disaster or a tremendous success. The question is yet to be seen.
Can we get also to the bottom of the question of Russia and what links you may or may not have had? I mean, you've admitted that you were in touch on Twitter with somebody that US intelligence believes was some sort of conduit for Russian intelligence.
Yeah, at least you worded that fairly. They believe, they can't prove.
I always word things fairly.
But more importantly, my only contact with Guccifer 2.0, which is on the direct message portion of Twitter, which I have made entirely public and released, although the government leaked it before that, it's innocuous. It also happens 6 weeks after the publication of the DNC documents by WikiLeaks. Therefore, collusion would be impossible without a time machine.
And so how long do you think President Trump's going to last now?
I think he lasts the 4 years and he may run for re-election. This just certainly remains to be seen.
Roger Stone, thank you very much indeed. Well, at times like this, we all need cheering up, according to the American actor and director Clark Peters, at least, who's back on the London stage with a new production of his hit musical Five Guys Named Mo. I went to speak to him earlier today, although he's not so cheerful about the 45th President of the United States.
joyfulness of it. And I think it's something that Louis Jordan said, was that he didn't want anyone to ever come to a show and leave feeling bad. He wanted you to have a good time.
Who's the greatest band around? Makes the cats jump up and down. Who's the top of Rhythm Town? Five guys named Mo, that's us.
The joy for bringing it back as well in the atmosphere that we're living in now. We need some escape, you know. A joyful moment, a joyful noise to know where we are, or that the world is not always going to be as we perceive it now. So be ready to enjoy yourself, to participate, and to commune and joy with a bunch of strangers, you know, who are sitting next to you. You might think, oh, I don't like that person. And the next thing you know, you'll be in a conga line with them.
I mean, you joke about it, but the truth is we do live in horrific times in so many ways.
Yes.
And I wonder what you think the role of entertainment and the arts is today.
Well, it's a very, very good question. I think the role of the arts, first of all, should be left alone to fulfill this role, which is to serve, entertain, educate its populace. In this instance, and to comment on what's happening. You know, what do we do with this time, in these times? How best do these times serve us in humanity? The 45th is a terrible character, yet he presents to the individual, moments for you to find your virtue, rather than just having a knee-jerk reaction and being just as aggressive or as negative to solve a problem as he is, as the 45th is, you know.
Why do you find it undesirable to mention the president's name?
Because I think that, you know, in Peter Pan, when they said, I don't believe in fairies, I do believe in fairies, I do believe in fairies, and then Tinkerbell comes alive, right? Simply because you said you believe and you constantly gave that energy. If I give energy to this turkey, you know, I don't want him in I don't want him in your intellect.
But he is the president. I mean, it's really interesting. The last time we spoke was last year, before he was elected. And I talked to you about him being a prospective president, and you said, don't say that. You know, I don't want to think of him as a prospective president.
Yes.
He is the president.
I stand corrected on that moment.
And I just wonder, you know, has he turned out to be as bad, not as bad, or what you expected?
He's worse than I expected. You know, I always felt that that there was a certain integrity in the office of a president. You know? And for me, he hasn't addressed anything in the individual, spiritually, ethically, correctly, as our former president did. When you see somebody like Obama in comparison to this man, it's not even two sides of the same coin. You know, one's a dollar bill and one's a penny. You know what I'm saying?
And why do you think Charlottesville is such a big moment?
Because it's happened recently in everyone's mind, and we can see it collectively. But that's, you know, for those of us who were born earlier than this moment, this is just part of the same scenario. From the time I was born, in New York City, fear of lynching was impressed on me.
And has that fear come back?
No, it's come back more as rage. It hasn't come back as fear. It's come back as rage, which is why I'm glad and I'm an artist, because I'm trying to find a way to put that into my creations.
I've been getting away